Hi, welcome to Starcat's Right Stuff. I'm Nikki Starcat Shields, author, book midwife, and leader of transformational writing retreats. And Starcat's Right Stuff explores the art and craft of writing a book, whether or not you've ever done it before, in a way that's fun and accessible. Today we're talking with Chase Young, author and founder of the Mommy Rebellion. Let's welcome my friend and colleague, Chase. Welcome.
Hi, Nikki. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So let's just get started with a little bit about you and how you became an author.
Um, well, in a lot of ways, I've wanted to be an author since I was a little kid, and I wrote a whole bunch of poetry to make it through my teenage years, most of which have not seen the light of day, but I still think about it sometimes. But how I came upon writing this book is that I'm the mother of four daughters, and it's been a journey, and there's been lots of points where I needed more help than I thought I could ask for. And so I learned that you can ask for help, that you're not necessarily going to be judged for it. But a lot of us aren't brought up with that concept that we can ask for help or that we can receive help. And so I wrote a book just kind of about all the craziness that is parenting and how some days it's lovely and other days, well, I really think it's more of other moments you want to actually kill your kids, and that's okay. That doesn't make you a horrible parent. And in a lot of ways, admitting to that makes you a better parent, I think.
So it's kind of like you're bringing to light these sort of secret conversations that moms have with one another.
Exactly. Or want to have, but are afraid to have, or I mean, for me, it started when my firstborn was less than a week old, and my mom and my husband were watching her and sent me to take a nap. And half an hour later, they woke me up because she was hungry, and I saw red. I was so angry at being woken up, and then I felt so guilty because how could I be angry at this teeny tiny little being? But I was because I was so tired.
Yep.
And I think that happens to everybody. I think that sense of parental guilt, because I think dads have it too, um, that we have these feelings toward our children. Yeah, they show up.
I love it. So what else would you like us to know about the book itself? Like maybe talk about, how it's set up.
Well, it's set up as a series of essays, and I think we ended up with like 12 different sections. Anything from me ranting about stuff to just, I mean, one of my favorite pieces is we have a tooth fairy. Why do we not have a menarche fairy when our girls get to that point? So I talk about a whole range of things, from the gross things my kids, and I'm sure your kids do, to just what it's like to just take a moment and try to breathe them all in exactly where they are right this second, because tomorrow they're going to be different.
There's some poems in there, which I love too.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
You said you started out
Yeah.
with poetry, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's just easier for it to come out that way.
Yeah, cool. And then you kind of set it up so that busy moms or dads can kind of read it.
Yeah. So each essay is meant to be able to be read in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Locked in the bathroom or on your cell phone when you're hiding somewhere, or because come on, do we really get much more reading time than that?
No.
Good day we do, but most days no.
So people can probably already anticipate some of the answer to this because you have four children, but what was the most challenging part of actually completing this book?
I think the thing that you helped me with the most was that I could just do it 3 times a week in 15 to 20-minute batches, because that's like doable in the crazy schedule of having four kids and homeschooling. So they're here almost exclusively all the time.
Running your business
And running my business. And if you read my book, you'll understand the reference. They're constantly interrupting chickens. They're like always interrupting me for stuff. But I did. It took about a year, but 3 times a week, most weeks, not every week, made a big difference.
Yeah.
But often when you're learning about writing, you have to show up every single day, and it might go faster if you do. And certainly maybe when I'm retired, I could do that. But I really liked how realistic it was to be able to just slotted in 15, 20 minutes and only 3 times a week.
Yeah, if you read like Stephen King's on writing, you're thinking, oh yeah, I've got to devote hours and hours of my day every day, and this sort of thing. Some people can do that, but most of us can't. And I have to tell you, you're one of my clients, and I have shared your story with so many clients and potential clients, is because they're saying, I don't have time. And I said, you know what? If this woman has time, you have time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you also have to just, I try to look at my schedule every season because it changes with kids, whether they're outside or inside or what they've got going on. And you just kind of look for the windows. So if you've got a kid that's taking a swim class that you have to stay there for, that could be a window where you could write in, and so just being kind of aware of when those windows can be, and that they may change constantly, but you still put them in.
Yeah. And then I think, were getting up before the kids woke up, which is.
That's what I was doing last year. Yeah, I was getting up just a little bit before the kids. Didn't always work that way. The other thing that I tend to do is I tend to write first. So before I even start working on my business, before I open email, I will do my writing, because again, it's a small chunk of time. I'm not devoting 3 hours.
Right.
So I can take that 15, 20 minutes and write, and then go look at the emails or the buyers or the whatever.
Yeah, like that. One of the things I had to do when I was writing, when I still did have kids at home, they're grown up now, but was to get used to, I read in my dining room, so it's a big common open area. I had to get used to like not looking at the dirty dishes and just letting them sit there until I'm done with my writing. So things like
that. Yeah, and I do a lot of writing from my bed.
Yep.
I sit in my bed and I write, and then I might move to the office and do work, but yeah.
Cool. What did you find most surprising about the whole process of writing or publishing this book in general?
I don't know that I found the writing. I mean, if you told me I could do it in when you told me I could do it in these little chunks, I didn't quite believe you. So that bit was it was a little bit of but it started working, and so it became less of a mind bender. Publishing, there's just so many bits and pieces, even with the self-publishing. Like, I just got a thing from Amazon this week that they've changed the table of contents. So now I need to go back and see if I need to adjust anything in the digital copy of my book. And there's a part of me that's like, I don't know what I'm doing here. How long is this going to take? And so I think that can be a side that people don't necessarily think about. Just like publishers these days still expect you to do a lot of the promotion, and people don't think about that. They're like, oh, I could be the next, J.K. Rowling, and they'll take care of it all for me. And that's not how it works that much anymore, at least not in the beginning. But then there's all the technical pieces.
Yeah.
That you probably also have to do when you submit stuff to a publisher. They probably want it in a certain format and stuff like that too. So
yeah, you do have to do a lot of that, but you're right. There are certain things with self-publishing. To me, that is outweighed by the benefits of, if I'm going to be promoting it myself, I deserve to
get more. Yeah. Exactly.
Reward for it. So,
but I think that's you were asking me what's the most surprising, and I think that's something that you have to think about, like slotting in your calendar, that you need to however often they update stuff, but you have to kind of tweak that. Some of the indie publishers that I follow, I'll even see them completely change their covers every couple of years and stuff like that. And
yeah, and if I remember right, we made a list, like a punch list of all the things
yes
to be done,
and that was super helpful. Yeah,
because then you're not forgetting. Oh yeah, I forgot about this with the table of contents and the
Yeah, but there's just stuff that happens after the book is published too that I think people aren't necessarily aware of or think about.
Yeah, the maintenance.
Yeah.
So what type of support did you seek out as you wrote this book, and how did I contribute to that? But not just with other support too.
Well, yeah, I mean, I knew I couldn't do it by myself because I have kids. It would get put on the back burner so easily. I love the fact that we had monthly check-ins that were like this, where we were seeing each other and I could say, hey, so I'm running into a problem here. It was super helpful that you were reading stuff as I went along, because one of my insecurities starting the project was, would I have like a consistent voice through it? Having not written anything quite this big and poetry being kind of different, I was really worried that it would sound jumbled and not make a lot of sense. So having that almost constant feedback was really helpful, because then I was like, because I know I asked you a couple times, is the voice consistent?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it was great to read, because even reading in the drafts, I was like laughing out loud because, yeah, you're funny.
Yeah. Which is apparently my writing style outside of poetry. I was looking at some of the stuff that I did as a teenager, and I'd invented these twins, and I would just do dialogue back and forth between them, and it was always funny, sarcastic, crazy stuff. So
cool. And so that'll move forward into I feel like each book has its own voice, but I think you could capture that humor as you move forward, because you have plans to write some fiction. Am I right?
Yeah, I do. They're a little derailed right at the moment with what's going on, but yeah, there are some plans to do that, and that dialogue stuff may actually be where I start now that I'm thinking about it. That might be a good place to start, and then see where the story comes out of the dialogue, as well as that's often the most fun bit of reading books, I think.
The dialogue, yeah. And it's something that some people find challenging, but if you've already delved into that and
I mean, I haven't really done, these were twins, so they were brother sisters, so it was kind of that banter, rather than, maybe a romantic or could be romantic banter, but I didn't have experience with that at that point either. So I couldn't, that wouldn't make a lot of sense. But the books that I love reading the most in fiction have that kind of sarcastic banter going on between
cool.
characters.
And you also got some support around the formatting and some support with the book cover. So tell us a little bit about that, because I know sometimes people are thinking, even if they haven't started writing, they're like, yeah, but how will I have a cover for this? How will I?
Yeah, no. So what I did with the cover, because it was about me and my kids, is I had a close friend of mine. We were all going to be at our house, and I just said, hey, can you take a bunch of photos from my book? So I didn't have to, do a formal photo shoot. And I didn't have to like pay a lot of money for that particular thing, but I was very clear with her that this is what it was, so there wasn't any intellectual property rights issues that go on either. And then you gave me a connection to get the book formatted, and that went really well. And was, again, the punch list was super helpful, because I could just put the things that my formatter needed in the actual punch list, because it was a shared document, so I could be like, okay, here's the bio and here's what goes on the bag. And
Yeah.
but I could also work on it out of order, which was also
In those
sometimes
15 minutes.
yeah, in those 15 minutes, right? And sometimes my brain needs that, it needs to be like, okay, here's your choices. Which one do you want to do now, rather than having to go in that order. So
very cool. So so a lot of times we're really informed and inspired by what we consume. So what do you like to read?
I read a lot of YA fiction. I think because it doesn't tend to be, so it's getting more complicated than it used to be, but there's a certain level of adult complication that doesn't usually show up in YA books. I'm always reading nonfiction too, so I'm not like, I don't know, I don't tend to binge on one thing. I'm very much sci-fi and fantasy. I always go back to that. And then I've really been enjoying some of the alternative Sherlock Holmes stuff that's come out in the last few years. So there's been some kids ones, and then there's been some more adult ones, and I've got a couple in my queue that I want to start because they look good. So
what kind of nonfiction do you tend to?
So I tend to do stuff. I'll do some business related, personal development stuff. I really like neurology. So one of the books I read about a year ago was on the teenage brain, which is really cool, because with like the new functional MRIs, they're able to see what's going on in their brains. And I've just gotten a teenager, so it's helpful. So some of that kind of sciencey stuff, periodically I'll read something on cosmology or, I'm an unschooler, so whatever piques my interest.
Things, yeah.
I'm super excited. We're doing Maine studies this year with my girls, and I'm super excited. I found this book called The Little Maid of Maine, and it's about sisters in the Revolutionary War, but here in Maine. I think they're going to go looking for gunpowder or something, and it was written in 1920. So I'm like really looking forward to this is an older style of writing and, sharing that with the kids too.
Cool. Oh, if you're doing Maine studies, check out Margaret Chase Smith. Oh, I love her.
Okay, so yeah, send me that because I won't remember. I would love to do that.
Hey.
We have a kiddo, yeah.
Awesome. So let's see, what's the best piece of advice that you have for someone who's just beginning the process of writing a book?
Mommy, nobody's gonna paint my nails. No one's gonna paint your nails. I'm so sorry. You could set up some newspaper downstairs and they could do it while they're watching the show. Maybe that's the problem.
Not like that. She's not good at it.
Well.
Taylor said no.
Well, you might just have to wait. I think the best piece of advice is to just put some times in your calendar and show up, even if you're staring at a blank page.
Mm-hmm.
For my book, I very much would start with what was really bothering me that day. Even if that doesn't end up going in the book, it's a place to get it started almost. I mean, I suppose it's almost like a journaling prompt, but just if I was feeling sick, I would talk about feeling sick that day, or, and what it's like to parent kids when you're not feeling well. And, so yeah, I think just slotting it in your calendar and then showing up and then not worrying if the page is blank.
Yeah. I like that. Even those of us who write a lot, I find that entry point is sometimes hard. Just actually.
You did not put your head.
Yeah, and I think.
White.
And I think, eventually you could probably do some kind of a ritual around it or something. I didn't have time to set anything like that up regularly. But the other thing that I did is that once I'd written one piece, I would just put the next essay right behind it. So the page wasn't actually blank. There was stuff there from last time. And so if I was really stuck, maybe I would read what I'd done last time. But I found that the stuff was more in my head before I actually showed up. And once I showed up, there was almost always something that needed to be said. So
yeah, cool. So it's like simmering on the back burner.
Often it is, even, because I continue to write some of this stuff for my blog, and often I will have the idea and it may take me 2 or 3 days to get to where I can actually write it, mainly because of interrupting chickens. But it also means that it sat back there for a little while. So, and then the other thing is sometimes I will brainstorm topics and I will have that actually in the document that I'm working on. And so I can look at those. And sometimes I'll go write about something completely different, but they're there. So I can pick from them if I want to. And then I'm not holding them in my head either.
I like that. Yeah. I love that your youngest showed up on the call because it's very, it just shows what the mommy rebellion is all about. Like, you're doing your thing, but you're going to have these interruptions. So tell us a little bit about the mommy rebellion for those who don't know about it yet.
So the mommy rebellion is a place of community for moms to hang out and just share what's going on in their day, but in a way that is judgment-free. So there's no mommy wars. There's no, oh my God, you fed your kid French fries, or oh my God, you don't feed your kids organic food. There's it's not a place for that, but it is a place for, she's really frustrating me right this moment, or I can't believe she did this really amazing thing. As well as it's a place to be more than just a mom. I think that it can, especially when your kids are super little, whether you work or not, it can become super all-consuming. And you're like, wait a minute, I was a person before this. Do I still get to be a person?
Yeah. I love that you talked about in the book some of the boredom. You never hear about how boring it can be to parent little babies.
Exactly, it can be. I mean, I
Can you do my nails?
can try and do your nails. I have my first 4 years of parenting, I was the working parent. My husband was the stay-at-home one. And so while now I tend to be home with the kids more, it's that was something I was really surprised about. I really wanted to be the stay-at-home mom, and then after, don't even think it took 6 months, I was just so bored, and I was like, why is this so boring? But singing nursery rhymes and going to story time and, you know, just keeping them from killing themselves is boring.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the Mommy Rebellion encourages people to, you know, bring their own interests into it and to be yourself.
Yeah, and to talk to other moms
Yeah.
and to ask for help and then accept the help you're given without nitpicking it. I think as women, we can sometimes do that. We have in our head that this is how it should look. And then when it doesn't look quite that way, like, I know that if I go away for a day and my husband's watching the kids, they're probably going to watch more TV than if I was home. But it's okay. They're with their dad. And half the time they're watching educational stuff on YouTube about what people eat in Japan or something that I could not stand to watch, but they watch with their dad. And so just letting go of what that looks like and just being like, hey, they're still alive. They got fed.
Mm-hmm.
I got time off or time away or whatever. Doesn't matter what it looked like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also that's, you know, I think the way that you're doing it and the way that the Mommy Rebellion sort of shows is much more of a realistic role model for our kids, because we don't want them to then be stuck in that pattern of I'm only a mom and I'm not doing my own passions.
Right. And I, you know, and I like, I mean, one of the things that my mom said to me a lot growing up is, you know, I only ever ask you to do your best. And I'm only ever asking myself to do my best. And sometimes my best isn't good enough. It just isn't.
And we make mistakes and we learn as parents. And
Exactly. And, you know, we apologize to our kids. And we also realize that we have an adult brain and they have a kid brain. And they're going to get angry and mad about things that we're doing in their best interest. And maybe when they have their own kids, they'll understand why we did it. And maybe they won't. And that's okay. You know, we can't always be the person that they like. And you can't grow to adulthood without getting uncomfortable and miserable sometimes. And it's not a reflection on the parent, just their process and what they need to do.
yeah.
Because they all come in with their own work to do.
Let's see your nails.
Can you show your nails? No, you're not gonna show them. They're orange.
Cool. All right, so where can readers find you and your books?
So you can find me at themommyrebellion.com. I'm also on Instagram with that same handle, and then on Facebook it's The Mommy Rebellion because someone else had Mommy Rebellion. I'm a little more active on Instagram. That's where you'll see a lot of the photos of what my kids are doing, what we're doing on our kind of mini homestead that is slowly getting bigger and bigger. But I still have weekly blog posts on the blog. That's where you can find information about the book and, you know, the community that we're building as well.
Well, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me today. And this is Starcat's Right Stuff. And this is Casey Young. Thanks for watching.